November 13th, 2026. Is it a potential expiration date on the human species? Well, Heinz von Forster certainly thought that way. Von Forster, born in 1911, was an Austrian American scientist who's known for his work in computer science and artificial intelligence, and he's most known for his 1960 Doomsday Equation formula, which he published in the Science Journal, predicting future population growth. Known as the Doomsday Equation, a 1960 issue of the Journal magazine included an article by von Forster and two of his colleagues proposing a formula representing historical data on world population. The authors then predicted future population growth on the basis of this formula. The formula gave 2.7 billion as the 1960 world population and predicted that the population growth would become infinite by Friday, November 13th, 2026, von Forster's 115th birthday anniversary, a prediction that earned the name the Doomsday Equation. Based on population data obtained from various sources, he and his students concluded that world population growth over the centuries was faster than an exponential. In such a situation, doubling time decreases over time. His tongue-in-cheek prediction on Doomsday November 13th, 2026 was based on an extrapolation into the future of doubling time, with the finding that doubling time would decrease to zero on that date. Responders to his doomsday prediction objected on the grounds that the finite human gestation time of 9 months and the transparent fact that biological systems rarely persist in exponential growth for any substantial length of time. And the idea of this prediction, of course, was a joke. The idea that we would overpopulate so much to the point that on a specific date, we would become too much and it would be such an exponential growth that the world would end. Although it's very interesting, and I want to talk about this because I was just researching some different doomsday stuff, some different predictions. Believe it or not, this is one of them that came up. This is like the next big one. We remember the one in 2012. I believe there was a date in 2018. You'll get one of these every like 5 or 6 years, but it was kind of curious because this is like the only prediction that I've seen in the 2020s with it happening on November 13th of 2026. Really not a prediction, more of just a funny thing if we experience exponential growth in terms of our population. And to be fair to him, if you're someone from the 1950s, the 1960s, the 1970s, I mean, even the early 2000s before we've had this recent realization where you're seeing all these people come out and say, no, we have a big time birthing issue. We do not have enough in terms of population in the United States, in Europe, and even in China, but we're seeing massive growths in Nigeria and India. It is very interesting how our world will change if these numbers continue. You can see, if you're someone in 1987, it does look like pretty constant growth, but we can predict right now in 2022 at around a little bit over 8 billion people that the population will level off basically completely by 2075 at this point. And then the whole idea, there's not going to be enough land, there's not going to be enough resources, that's all been disproven multiple times. Yes, technically we could build a giant building that would be the size of a small city and fit the entire world's population in a singular building in, let's just say, Dallas, Texas, San Antonio, Texas, whatever city you want to talk about. There's several videos about this. We don't really have that issue. If you go on a plane, from New York to LA, you will pass a ton of uninhabited land, just farmland in the middle of the United States. World population growth, 1,700 to 2,100. You can see the stark change, and you can see where it reached its pinnacle right in 1963 when all of these different predictions were coming out. Our population is growing way too fast, but one of the reasons that we've seen especially countries like the United States go down in population, A lot of these people just do not want a family. And it is surprising, but there's so many different factors that go into it, including the cost of children, very expensive. U.S. annual population growth, you can see it's at its virtually lowest point ever. I guess it's had a bit of a tick up since that 2020 timeframe. Maybe that was I'm guessing that was during the pandemic. You know what's another interesting thing just about 9/11? If you look at U.S. homicide rate, you can see the crazy dent, because I guess all of those deaths during 9/11 were labeled as homicides, and it just spikes way up in late 2001. And it's the highest spike I think you'll see on a graph if you look up U.S. homicides. I believe that's correct. But the annual population growth, yes, you can see it's at 0.38%. Back when the Doomsday prediction was made, it was at around, anywhere from 1.5 to 2%, and it kind of stayed. And then it actually went up a little bit in the 90s. And since then, it has absolutely cratered to its lowest point since we've basically began tracking it prior to the 1900s. The top 10 countries in population, you can see 2017 versus 2100. You do have China falling possibly to third place. They've got major issues right now with deflation, where everything loses value, and they've got horrible unemployment thanks to their policies during the pandemic, where they locked everyone inside for a year and a half. You see India moving up to number one. They've got massive air pollution problems stemming, believe it or not, from construction dust. That's one of their big issues. You would think there has to be some type of world effort. Like, I'm sure there has been, but how do you have that horrible air quality? And I know they say, well, look at the population density. It feels like when you look at some of these other places like Shanghai, where they've got crazy population density as well, they're not dealing with the same levels of smog that India is. But India in New Delhi, it's every day. And we had some smog from Canada, their wildfires this summer. It is just, the air pollution is horrible. It's like burning plastic. It smells like you're breathing in radiation. Maybe that's not the type of pollution that India has, but that would be horrible living in that, just not clean air. You can see Nigeria, it's just completely out of control. Nigeria goes from 7th to 2nd in the span of about 82, 83 years, it looks like. Just absolutely crazy. The United States goes from 3rd to 4th, so they drop 1, they fall behind Nigeria. And then you can see the global population, 1950, 2030, 2050. Once again, Nigeria going up crazy, India passing China, the United States dropping from 3rd to 4th. And that's about it. Russia falling off the map as well. And that's, the fact that they're in a war is not going to help that at all. And you can see the Philippines enters possibly in 2050. And then these are the percent gained in terms of population. Syria, South Sudan, Niger, all gaining a lot of people. And then you look all the way down, the United States listed at 129th with a population growth of 0.68, along with Switzerland, some of the more first world countries, some of the Western European countries as well. And then how about the Cook Islands losing 2.1% of their population in a single year? And then there you can see India. This graph really doesn't represent a good job of it, but that, 0.8 versus 0.1 is a big difference in terms of population growth. So India sitting at 0.8 growth, United States at 0.1, China also at 0.1 as well. Population collapse is the biggest threat to civilization. Japan had its largest total drop in population since 1968. It's these first world countries that are not having children at the rates they used to. The U.S. population flatlining as birth rate stagnates. China's fertility rates hit record low. Singapore's birth rate fall to record lows. UK births hit a 20-year low. Italy's birth rate drops to historic low. South Korea breaks record for world's lowest fertility rate. And then they say at Elon Musk. So Elon Musk has been one of the bigger people that's kind of shifted this conversation where, I started this video talking about, because I'll be fair to the scientists. Back in the 60s and 70s, yes, we were experiencing a big rapid population growth, although we really couldn't express it with different graphs. We didn't have the internet. It was really hard to find the information. Now that we see everything and we see what's happening with a lot of these, countries in the West, it is a, decline in population, and you're seeing other countries really gain a lot of people. What does that say about our world in 70 or 80 years? If these numbers continue, it should be a very interesting thing to track, but that's just something funny I wanted to talk about. The Doomsday proposal. We're going to have an infinite number of people. It's going to be so overrun because the population is just going to grow at an exponential rate. And the idea is, you're going to have more kids than your mom had. Your kids are going to have more kids than you. Your grandchildren are going to have more kids than your kids. And it's just going to exponentially grow like it was in the 60s and 70s. That, of course, has not happened. And there's a number of economic factors as to why. But guys, that is going to do it for this video. Make sure you're following me on X. Link to that's always in the description.